Do you remember a time when the whole world smelled like coffee, cigarettes, and freshly cut grass? When the mail came twice a day, and a man wouldn't leave the house without a hat? Before the internet, 24-hour news cycle, there was the rhythm of the 1950s. It was a decade of sock hops, tail fins, the Cold War hum in the background. But what does a normal Tuesday actually feel like today? We aren't talking about Elvis or I Love Lucy. We are talking about the small, forgotten rituals, the things so ordinary, no one wrote them down. But if you grew up back then, you did these 15 things every single day. Put on your cardigan. Let's go home. Every kitchen table had a newspaper spread out like a sacred cloth. You didn't just read the headlines. You read the grocery ads, the movie times, and the obituaries of people you knew. Coffee in one hand, newsprint smudging your fingers. That was how you started the American day. Before the remote control, you were the remote. You had to stand next to the television, twisting two metal poles wrapped in tin foil while your dad yelled, "There, go back! No, far!" The picture was fuzzy black and white, but to you, it was magic. You woke up to the crackle of a tube radio playing Sinatra or the local farm report. Had to warm up for 30 seconds. You tied your shoes to the sound of static and disc jockeys who announced the school bus delays. Music felt warmer back then because it came out of wood, not plastic. At the corner drugstore, next to the glass jar of Mary Jane's, sat a small cardboard tray. If you were short a cent for your candy bar, one, no guilt. Later, if you had extras, you left one. It was an honor system that assumed everyone was basically good. Houses had a little metal door on the outside wall. The milk chute. You woke up, opened the inside latch, and reached into the cold morning air to pull out 2 glass bottles with cardboard lids. Cream had risen to the top. You could shake it, or you could skim it. Either way, it was delivered by a man in a white uniform. Nothing came out of the dryer wrinkle-free. Every morning, mothers or daughters set up the ironing board and sprinkled water from a Coke bottle with a sprinkler top onto cotton shirts. You ironed pillowcases, handkerchiefs, and even your dad's boxer shorts. The smell of hot starch is a lost perfume. If you were born early in the decade, you still had an icebox. A sign in the window said 25 labis or 50 labiques to tell the iceman. He carried a giant block with metal tongs over his leather-stained shoulder. You watched him drop it into the top compartment and listened to it crackle as it melted. Every morning, you turned the little knob on the side of your watch 20 times. It wasn't a battery, it was a tiny spring. If you forgot to wind it, you were late for the 80:15 train. Time was physical. You could feel the resistance in your fingers. A man walking out the door without a fedora was considered undressed. Women wouldn't go to the grocery store without white gloves and a strand of fox pearls. It wasn't vanity, it was armor. You showed the world you had standards, even if you were just buying a loaf of bread. Everyone smoked. The doctor, the teacher, the pregnant neighbor. There were ashtrays in the waiting room, the bathroom, and next to your bed. A standing ashtray with a heavy glass base sat in the living room. You flicked your ash and watched it float down like gray snow. The air was always hazy. Want to talk to Grandma? You stuck your finger in the holes of a black rotary phone and spun the dial slowly. Click, click, click. If you didn't know the number, you dialed Arzu, and a real woman named Betty or June said, "Number, long distance cost real money." You kept it short. There were no pop, tops, or pull tabs. Beans, condensed milk, and spam required a metal church key opener. You punched 2 triangular holes in the lead, one to pour, one to let air in. The edges were razor sharp. Every adult had a scar on their thumb from a bad lid. Storm doors had a hydraulic closer that hissed. If you let it slam, the whole house shook. Kids learned a specific dance. Open the wooden screen door, step out, hold it, and let it close with a soft thump. If you failed, Mom's voice echoed from the kitchen, "Do it again." No swiping, no tapping. You stood at the A&P counter with a carbon copy checkbook. You wrote the date, the store name, and the amount in cursive. The cashier called the bank. To verify you had the money, you left with a carbon copy that turned purple in your wallet. At exactly 6:00 p.m., fire siren or factory whistle blew. It meant dinner is on the table. Fathers looked at their wristwatches. Kids riding bikes stopped pedaling. For 30 seconds, the whole town paused. It was the American heartbeat. That whistle doesn't blow anymore. The milk chutes are painted shut. The penny trays are collector's items on eBay. We traded the standing ashtray for a smoke alarm. We traded the rotary dial for a touch screen that never stops buzzing. But sometimes, late at night, when the Wi-Fi goes out and the house is truly silent, you can almost hear it. The hiss of a storm door, the crackle of a tube radio. You can almost feel the weight of a newspaper in your lap. We didn't just grow up. We lived through the last era where things were slow enough to feel. Thank you for remembering with me. If you want to keep walking down this lost American street, hit that subscribe button. Let's keep the memory alive.